Hey everyone, this is Andrew from Private Investigator Advice Podcast. This is going to be episode 72, and in this episode we're going to be discussing what a private investigator can expect when going to court for a workers' compensation case. This episode is brought to you by Invoice Home. Invoice Home is an online invoice creator. And it's been serving businesses and individuals since 2014 with 1 million current users. Invoice Home helps you to keep track of your invoices, what's been paid, what hasn't been paid, even keeps track of your clients. They pass the latest PCI compliance data security standards, and all data communication is encrypted. Invoice Home has a free plan that doesn't cost a thing. I have tried it, and you should check it out as well. Go to invoicehome.com to see if Invoice Home is right for you. Thank you, Invoice Home, for advertising on the Private Investigator Advice podcast. Okay, everybody. So several years ago, I received a message from somebody regarding a situation they were having. Basically, they said that they had worked a surveillance and only worked a few hours on it. And they didn't get any activity. They never saw the claimant or the person they were supposed to be videotaping. And they were asked to come to court for that file, that claimant that he had worked. And he was concerned because he didn't get anything, and he just wanted to know, like, did he have to show up? And, was it required to even be there? And I got the sense in the email that he was kind of uneasy about the whole idea, like maybe he'd never been to court for working as a private investigator or working an insurance file for that matter. And it's understandable, because when you've never been to court, you just don't know what to expect, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, like, it's unfamiliar to you, and there can be some anxiety for sure. You just, I can envision, them being worried about, maybe the lawyer's going to trick me or something like that and make me say something or do something that I, didn't happen. I don't know. I don't know what his anxiety came from, but he was definitely worried about going to this court hearing. And so when I was kind of prepping for this podcast, I was trying to think of, when was the first time that I went to court for, working a surveillance file? And the only thing I could think of was when one particular case that I'm not going to describe in great detail, but somebody else had worked it, and then I had worked it, and then we were both asked to come to court to, testify on behalf of our work product. And I don't think I was that nervous about it, because at that time there was this other veteran investigator there, and any question that I had, he was going to be there to answer. And I also remember the person that we videotaped was there too, waiting in the waiting room with us, which is kind of awkward. But that's basically what I remembered. And I also remembered that same file that after the video was reviewed, they reviewed it without us being in the room. The attorney came out and said, "Hey guys, great job. We're not gonna need you." After they saw the video, they're gonna go ahead and settle. And so basically, early on in my career, that's a lot of the court cases that I would go to. I would get there, and then they would tell me, "Hey, we took care of it," or whatever. We're not going to need you to testify. That's a lot of what happened. Hey everyone, I'm just going to interrupt the podcast really quick just to share that this remaining portion of this podcast is brought to you by Audible. Dude, Audible's got like a bajillion books, and they're offering a free audiobook to you. All you need to go to is www.audibletrial.com, PIA. I'll have this link inside the podcast notes as well as the video notes. So if you're looking for a free book, look, there's no obligation. I think you get like a 30-day free trial. And so you pick a book out, and if you don't want to do the Audible thing, you go ahead and cancel it. You get to keep the book though. So pick a good book. And that's it. That's really simple. for surveillance guys or guys and gals that are driving around long distances, and you're maybe you want to listen to a book about a story, or maybe you're looking for knowledge. There's all these different books you can choose from. I think you're going to love it. So go ahead and check that out. Again, it's audibletrial.com/PIA. Take a look, and let's get back to the podcast. So let me just kind of, in my experience, kind of give you the gist of what to expect when you go to a workers' compensation file. So I'm going to kind of give you like little timeline of what happened. So basically, obviously you work the file, you do the surveillance, and then you give the video to the client, and you give the report to the client, and that's that work product that you provide to them. And then you might not hear from them ever again, right? But sometimes, for me in particular, it's usually like 2 or 3 years later, I'll get a phone call and say, hey, we need you to come to court, for such and such case. And I'll be like, what case was that? So anyways, usually what you do is you try to figure out, like, they'll give you some dates, like, hey, this is the date we're aiming for this court date. And you make yourself available, right? And what I like to do, and what should be a standard procedure, is you should be getting your the report. Particularly, sometimes you get it from the attorney because they have all that good stuff by then, or you get it from you have it because you are the company that worked it, or if you worked for a company, then you're going to get it from them. They'll give you the reports and the video. And that you're supposed to review that and take a look at what you did. That could be many years ago, and you might have forgot what even took place. So it's behoove of you to review that video, review the report that you wrote, and so then the court date comes, and maybe you've talked to the attorney prior to that. Maybe they've talked to you and maybe asked you questions prior to the court date, and even when you get there, maybe you meet up with the attorney and say, hey, just want to let you know I'm here, whatever. And so, like I was telling you earlier, there's many times where you'll be sitting in the waiting room, sometimes with the claimant that you videotaped many years ago. And the attorney will come out and go, hey, we don't need you. Thank you for your time, and, have a great day. And other times you'll be asked to go in there and, testify. And so they're not all the same. They're not, not every scenario is the same. There's been times where, I was sitting waiting outside the courtroom, and everybody was testifying, and then it was my turn, and I went in there, and we watched the entire video, and it was like an hour and something minutes long. And then after that, questions were asked, and the attorney will try to trip you up or try to challenge you in whatever you did. It's not that big of a deal, though. You just answer all the questions honestly, and you only elaborate as much as you need to, right? And if you don't remember something, you say, I don't remember, or I don't know. If you don't know something, you don't know. And then after that, you're done. So it's not that big of a deal, at least in my experience. There's been times, though, where I've gone to court and the other side didn't show up, and I sat down. It kind of seemed informal, but I sat there. The judge was there, and the attorney was sitting by the TV, and we were just watching the video that I obtained. And while we were watching it, he's like, hey, so blah, 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 this is happening, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what happened here? Did you see that? And, whatever. He's asking me questions as the video played. It was very informal. And then it was, hey, thank you for your time. And then I was out of there. It was really simple. What I like to do, since I've kind of given you that, I want to give you guys some tips. Listen, this isn't rocket science, but just kind of give you some friendly tips for, going to court. Your attire for court, some investigators, they dress up in suits, and that's fine. Some people dress in like a dress polo, kind of a polo shirt, and they wear khakis or slacks, always wearing kind of formal shoes. You don't come in t-shirts, you don't come in jeans, you're not wearing shorts. It's kind of a professional environment. You want to dress appropriately. Women, women probably usually don't have a problem. They usually dress up appropriate. Men, I'm more worried about the men dressing appropriately for court. Another thing is you don't want to stink. You don't want to smell like a big ashtray. You want to make sure you're all clean and showered. I used to be a smoker, and I always felt, I just didn't want to stink when I went to court. I didn't want anybody, smelling cigarette on me. So just make sure you clean up. If you did smoke, wash your hands, and you don't want to smell like an ashtray when you're walking into the courtroom. You want to make a good impression, and that's usually, generally speaking, cigarette smell is not a great smell, or body odor is not a great smell. So be clean, all right? You want to get there early. Early on in my career, I was in California, and a lot of the court cases that I had to go to were in Oakland. And so, with no traffic, we're looking at 45 minutes to an hour to get there. And then with traffic, you just never know. So I would always aim to try to be at the courthouse an hour before I was supposed to be there. And that gives me a chance to find parking. I'm not rushing to get to the courtroom to be on time. You know what I mean? That gives me an opportunity to, if the attorney's there, I can talk to the attorney, and just kind of be prepared. And I can look through my notes, and I just want to be a prepared witness if I need to be, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I always recommend talking, if you can, talking to the attorney prior to the court date. And if it's your first time testifying or being in court for, a workers' compensation case, let the attorney know. And that way they can give you some pointers and kind of give you some expectations of what they're looking for. I always ask, hey, did you want to, talk to me ahead of time, or do you want to talk to me the day of, before before the whole thing starts? And sometimes they do. The bigger files, the bigger court cases, the more important ones, usually they're over preparing. They're meeting with me early that morning prior to the court even beginning. Let's see. Let me give you just some general rules for testifying in court. Now, you got to remember, when I'm talking to you guys, I'm assuming that you've done everything right. You haven't done anything illegal. You've done everything ethically. You didn't selectively videotape when you were there. You videotaped every chance you got without getting caught. Or doing whatever was safe to do that. And so, if you go in there with that, then, you really shouldn't have any problems. And again, if you don't remember something, you say, I don't remember, or I don't recall, or, I don't know the answer to that. But there will be times when the attorneys will challenge the integrity of what you did on that assignment. And I still remember one of the times that I was there that they were reflecting on my video, and I was videotaping the person, and I had stopped, and there wasn't an end to the scene. The guy didn't walk out of view and then I stopped videoing. It was mid-video I stopped, and there was nothing in particular happening, but they had asked, he said, why did you stop it at that point? And why did you stop? And I tried to explain to him, hey, the car that I was in at that time only had a certain amount of tint, and there was people walking their dogs around my car, and I didn't want to be discovered because I'd been there so long, and I was, in the moment of this. And so I turned off the camera and put the camera down, so not to raise suspicion. I was pretty close to the house. And that was it. That was the truth. I had no reason to stop. I had hours of video. And so that was the truthful reason. And that ended that, him trying to challenge, what I had done. And that kind of gets back to me telling you why you should never selectively videotape. So again, if you do everything right, if you do everything legally and ethically, then you should have no worries or concerns about going in there. And the more you do it, the more you go to court, the more comfortable you'll feel. You won't have as much anxiety. Let me just tell you a quick story. I was going to save this for another time, and maybe I'll talk about this again as well. But this is the struggles that I went through as a 12, 13 years ago. So back then we played everything VHS, right? So when we went there, we sometimes we brought the tapes. I worked for a company that was based out of Florida, and they would send me VHS tapes of the video that I did, and they would have two tapes, if I recall correctly. One was the raw footage of every single time shot that I took, and the other one was the condensed footage of just the video that pertained to the subject that I was videotaping. So you didn't have to sit through video that really didn't matter, I guess you would say. But they always had the original. And so so we had these VHS tapes, and there was concern that from the company that I work for, like, hey, not every courtroom has a TV and a VHS tape or, recorder. You need to go buy a combo, a TV combo with a VHS player in it. And so I went down with my wife, and we bought and I'm going to show a picture of it over here, because I want you to know the pain that I went through. And so you look at this picture that I have here. It's actually, as I'm videotaping this, it's in the air right now above me. That's how it's been there for a long time now. But I bought this TV that you'll see, and you have to watch the video if you listen to the podcast. And so I bought this TV, and I had no way to transport it to these court cases. I really didn't. And so what I would do is I got our big suitcase, and a regular big suitcase you would take on a flight, like a big one. And I stuffed that TV in that suitcase, and I could only get it zipped up about halfway, and just enough to where the TV wouldn't fall out. And then it had the little pull-up thing, and I pull it and I drag it all the way to the courtroom. And they were just like, what do you have this here for? I was like, my company asked me to have a TV and VCR prepared in case you didn't have one. And so I did that so many times. Eventually technology moved past VHS, and everything kind of went to DVD and stuff. So I didn't have to drag that thing around with me anymore. And every courtroom just seemed to have what they needed. And anyways, I ended up with a TV and a VCR that I don't seriously think I ever used in court. But that's my stupid little story with that. Anyways, so that's kind of coming to the conclusion of this. You can, I'll post in the, in this video that I'm making, and also the podcast notes. If you're looking on your phone on iPhone, look in the notes section of the podcast. You'll see a bunch of different links that I'm going to have in there. One of which is going to be the link to this original article. I did some reviews. I'm doing a lot of reviews lately, and so I'm going to post a lot of the reviews that I have, both articles and videos of some of the stuff I've done. In particular, there's this spy camera that's a little charger box, and it's really neat. I'm not gonna explain it on here, but it's really neat. You need to check that out. And that's about it, guys. I'm gonna keep on trucking with these podcasts and trying to get these out more frequently to you guys. It's one of the things I've been lagging on. I've been writing a lot. I've been making videos. I just haven't been doing the podcast as much as I should. And I thank you guys for listening. If you could, you go to iTunes and give this a review. If you're watching the YouTube video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you thought it was worth it. And of course, if you got any future topics for the podcast, feel free to mention them in the comments of the video or even the original article. Thank you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.